I'm here today with Robert Newman, and we're going to be talking about how you can generate leads for your accountancy practice by direct mail. Say hello, Robert.
Good morning, Simon. Good morning, everyone.
Hello, Robert, and I can't wait to get started. So without further ado, if I could introduce Rob. If you're there, Rob, you turn your camera on.
Good morning.
That's the good morning. That's always the heart pounding bit. Did it all work as it all did a moment ago? Yeah. So without further ado, can I please give a warm and welcoming round of applause to Rob Newman? Go, Rob.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, welcome. Thank you for attending and listening to me. Direct mail is a bit of a surprise that anyone's interested in. I thought it had completely fallen out of favor. Although for the last 20 years, I have been consistently generating leads for the accountancy firm through it. And it has and still remains probably my most consistent method of generating work. And to give I've got some slides to share. To give a brief background, we are a general practice firm of accountants in North Manchester. We've got about 2,000 clients. The average fee is around £1,500. I have some outliers in there with some big fees. I have people that are spread all over the place. Most of the work, though, is within 25 miles of my office. They are small owner-managed businesses. I personally try and stay away from doing as much of that work as I possibly can nowadays. I have a team of 41 people and I try and get them doing most of it. What that means is I personally try and concentrate on complicated stuff and anything that is of interest to me. Wasn't always like that, though. Once upon a time, it was quite different, which hopefully you can all get a full screen view of saying how to generate leads.
Yep.
There are some issues. Thank you. Thanks for confirming. Yeah. So what I'm going to cover is how I got started in business generally, how I got into direct mail, what you should read before you start. And although that is a list of books, Mark will be sharing that later with everyone. So please don't make panic and try and scribble it down and remember it. Routine results I get from direct mail, what you should actually do. Everybody's favorite radio station, WIIFM, samples of what I'm sending, who to target and where to go to get things. I am going to aim for about 35, 40 minutes. I am renowned for waffling on forever, so someone may have to come in and stop me. I think the last webinar I did, well, I actually did a webinar last night. It was supposed to take 40 minutes and it went on for about an hour and a half. So please do jump in, Simon, if I do start waffling on too long.
I will do.
So how I got started, I think this is very appropriate. I had a previous career in the army. I came out of the army for some reason, ended up in accountancy. It was actually the first job that the army sent me along to. I did the usual thing, big firm, small firm, then joined a regional practice, which had the dubious honor of being one of the very first firms that got bought out by Tenon. We all got called to a hotel in central Manchester and given red and green badges as we arrived. I got a green badge. Green was for go, and I suddenly found myself with no job. Having been through a few different firms and a few interesting characters, I thought it was at that point a now or never situation. This was 1999. I wasn't married at the time, had no family, had some redundancy money both from the army and from accountancy, and decided to stick a sign on a door. Having stuck the sign on the door, I went around looking for buying up a practice, buying into a practice, which I've subsequently done an awful lot of, but which at the time I'd done practically nothing of. And that's one of those things that's easy if you've done loads of, because people start believing and trusting in you more. Whereas if you've never actually bought a practice before, it's actually hard to get on the lists of the brokers because they don't know how you're going to react. I was also starting to rapidly run out of money at this point because I still carried on spending as if I had a job and didn't. In part of that spending, I joined 2020 Group. Nothing I'm going to talk of today is new, original, or did I invent. I have stolen it from somewhere. Of everything was this man and that book. Fredrickson used to publish a thing through 2020 Group called the Marketing Correspondence Cookbook. I went along to a one-day seminar. I think it was loved Chris and his approach. He later offered me a job working for 2020, which I didn't take him up on. And I had a fascinating evening with him once in Birmingham, where he was attempting to get me drunk, not realizing I was an ex-squaddy and could probably drink him and several others underneath the table. But the Marketing Correspondence Cookbook was about 200 letters that Chris had sent out to the local inhabitants of San Francisco to try and generate direct or new work for himself. In so doing, he published this to all of the members and advocated buying a copy of ACT for 99 quid, getting hold of a marketing list, which he originally got from Yellow Pages. He just typed them into ACT, which is, I did something similar, and start pumping out letters. It was no more complicated than that. The letters went out on letterhead, and I literally copied and pasted what he did.
Rob, just for the benefit, ACT, is that like a contact management system?
It was an old contact management system. It was an old CRM system that used to be for sale in PC World. It got bought out by Sage, I believe, and then closed down.
Okay, thank you.
But that's what it was. One of the questions I know people will ask is, how do I run this nowadays? I don't use any software whatsoever at this point other than Microsoft Excel. All of the lists running is on Excel. Only if it becomes a warm prospect or a client does it then move into anything to do with software. Other than that you need practically nothing to do this. Having kind of exhausted Marketing Correspondence Cookbook and what results I was getting from it, I started reading around, and this would be my top 8 of things. I'm going to give a little bit of background into some of them because I think it colors the view of how you approach direct mail to know where some of these people come from. Common Sense Direct Digital Marketing by Drayton Bird and David Ogilvy on Marketing are in many ways linked. The two of them largely created an advertising agency in the 60s called Ogilvy and Mather, which was considered to be the most progressive and forward-thinking of its time, and influence on the TV program Mad Men. There's lots and lots of debate as to who the main character of the TV program Mad Men actually was. There's lots of talk that it was based on David Ogilvy, him coming from an unusual background. But Drayton Bird is largely credited as the godfather of direct marketing, and Common Sense Direct and Digital Marketing is the Bible on all of this stuff. Drayton Bird has made and lost millions over the years doing a variety of different businesses. He largely created the adverts you see in the Sunday papers to buy elasticated trousers and slip-on shoes, and that extension thing that allows you to pick up litter off your garden that you never knew you needed, and all of the other stuff. He's credited for buying up lots and lots of dead stock and finding ways of getting to the public. Drayton's still alive. He's actually originally from Salford in Manchester, was a university dropout who bummed his way over to America and walked into Ogilvy Mather on Madison Avenue and largely blagged his way to the top of the advertising world. His approach is very, very direct, and in his opinion, direct marketing is no more than salesmanship in print. Although he comes from the era of classified advertising and he comes from the era of literal direct mail, as I do, the principles apply equally if you are going to start running any form of advertising, whether that be on Google or LinkedIn or anything else. Well worth getting, well worth reading. It's something that I think you want to have as a resource if you are even contemplating getting involved in direct mail. Blink, relatively modern one. Marketing is Applied Psychology, worth having a look at. The Direct Mail Solution by Craig Simpson and Dan Kennedy. in my opinion, anything by Dan Kennedy is worth reading. There is loads and loads and loads. He was a prodigious writer. It's all within the sales and marketing space. There are the no BS guides too. He also wrote things like time management and developing staff and managing staff, also pretty good. But the Dan Kennedy stuff, which is still, he passed a few years ago, but which is still largely available on the internet, is certainly worth looking. And there is loads that you can swipe from there. He published a list of 1,000 headlines once to open direct mail pieces with. And I have used those over and over again, swapping out keywords to make it relevant to accountancy. The direct mail solution is, in my opinion, probably one of the better of those books, along with his one, which is on the next slide, of the No BS Direct Marketing, The Ultimate No Holds Barred Kick Butt, Take No Prisoners Direct Marketing for Non-Direct Marketing Businesses. Again, well worth reading, well worth looking at. The other three things: scientific advertising, Claude Hopkins. I think that's the oldest book on marketing and advertising that's readily available anyway. It was published about the very early 1900s. Again, by an advertising guy who I believe was from Chicago. It's the principles of copywriting and getting responses to things in direct mail. The Robert Collier Letters book is also well worth having. That's literally on the bookcase by the side of me. It's something that I dip into regularly to this day, pilfer, lift, tweak, and put out. And then the Robert Bly Copywriting Handbook is well worth having as well. Mark will put all those out. You do want to read this stuff before you start getting into advertising and direct marketing. You do want to have an awareness of it. The other thing that I subsequently did was become a member of the Direct Marketing Association, which now has a slightly different name, although it still uses the DMA thing. I think something like the Direct and Digital Marketing Association or something. That's one of these things that you can quite easily join and take some of their courses. The link to it I will put up at the end, is at the end of these slides. It's well worth having. I wholly believe in direct mail and direct marketing for our businesses. The people on this call, the people who will view this, we're not Coca-Cola. We can't run those sort of campaigns that those guys do, but we can do stuff that they can't. And we are very much of the guerrilla marketing school of thought. And in so doing, this lends itself perfectly to that. You are cutting out all of the middlemen that could possibly come between you and your client or your future client, and you are appealing directly to them. So you've got to be able to deliver a message to them quickly in a way that they're going to grasp and understand. Now, I'll give a couple of examples later, but I'm never going to be able to put that out on a webinar like this of exactly what you were saying and exactly how to do it. It's just too vast a subject. But do refer back to some of these. But to give some idea, or to say why I reckon you won't use direct mail and why I think it's going to be a problem for you, it's gentle rain. I use that title, Gentle Rain, for this because it's drip, 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 as opposed to an influx. If you go and buy a client base, if you go and buy a practice, you immediately get a massive amount of work from it. If you go and talk at a webinar or a seminar, you're likely to get a number of prospects all in one go. With Gentle Rain, you have to be consistent. You have to constantly pump this stuff out. It doesn't need massive amounts of your time, and it certainly doesn't need much of your energy once you get it going. In the very early days, yes, I was literally putting letters in envelopes and literally stuffing them and literally licking them at one point because couldn't even afford to buy gummed envelopes. But you have to be consistent. This is very much a consistency thing, a rhythm and routine. The rhythmic acquisition of new clients has to be paramount to what you're doing if you're going to take the direct marketing approach, which is why I think a lot of accountants won't do it. You will get a 1% response rate to what you send out. 1%. That's typical. A really good campaign may get 2%. What this means is if you send 10 letters, you're not going to see anything. You have to send thousands of letters. I typically send 1,000 to 2,000 letters a month. That's my typical. That's 12 to 24,000 a year. I actually aim for 15 to 20,000 mail pieces a year. That's what I'm aiming for. I'll give the numbers in a moment as to what I get from it. But a 1% response rate means you have to work this. Now, if you send 1,000 letters a month, you're looking at 10 prospects on average for those. And you won't get all 10 prospects. They're not going to come beating the pathway to your door saying, please take my money. You still have to work them, but they are pre-qualified. You have already identified a target which is very interested in what you're doing, even more so than when we used to run Yellow Pages adverts of old. The Yellow Pages adverts were much better than a cold call, in my opinion, simply because the person had to do something to get in touch with you. They had to physically open their cupboard, get out Yellow Pages, look for an accountant, see an advert, read it, and ring you. The cold call approach from a number of years ago, and any sort of passive marketing you do, tends to generate a less interested prospect. With direct mail, you have written to an individual. They have had to read, they've had to get it, open it, read it, and respond. They are interested. They are they are self-selecting that they are there, but you still have to follow it up. You still have to create a system and a process for following up that works for you within your practice. You still have to ensure that you are dealing with their inquiries and their stuff, which means you have to invest your time in it. And I mean, I personally am no more than about 10% chargeable in the practice, and 90% of my time is split 50-50 between managing the 41 people and dealing with their stuff, and then this type of thing, generating new work, looking for new prospects, looking for new targets, ways of taking the business forward. I am at a stage where I'm very lucky. I have a partner who will do a lot of the follow-up at this stage. He's a chap that joined me as a trainee. I brought him into the business. He is superb, and truthfully, he's better at following up than I am. I think he very much heard the falconer and became the falcon. He consistently gets better results than I do, because I think he's probably nicer to deal with than I am, but you have to do it. The other reason why you won't do this is it's completely and utterly intangible. You're going to spend 12 to 15,000 pounds a year on what? As accountants, we don't like spending money. Well, let's put it this way. I certainly don't, unless it's on lovely bow ties or something. I don't like spending money on intangible things. It's why I struggle to be willing to spend lots of money, time, effort, and energy on things like social media, Google AdWords. I do a very small amount of those, but nothing like I do with these. I have dabbled over the last few years with social media and have never got anywhere with it, although I know plenty of people do. I've been on these type of webinars where people have hosted and shown how they can generate £200,000 a year through LinkedIn or whatever they do. It's not worked for me. In some respects, I think that's more tangible even than direct mail. You are pumping out loads of stuff. For what? For what reason? The next thing which it certainly leads into is it's boring and old-fashioned. There's no glamour to direct mail anymore, although I actually think you've got more chance of being read that way than any other way now, simply because people get less and less post. You go back 15, 20 years ago, there was a lot more post. When I first get going with this, there was a hell of a lot more post landing on someone's desk than there is now. It's almost a rarity to get things now. And certainly when you do, you're more inclined to look at it, is my opinion, particularly if you take the very best direct mail approach I have ever undertaken myself, which I'll give to you later. Keep watching because I will talk about that when we get there. It has a huge success rate. Your 1% will be generated up to about 20%. There's a lot of time, effort, and energy involved in that particular thing. To say you have to spend real money, you do have to pump out thousands of mail pieces. Your target audience, in my humble opinion, is within 25 miles of your office. Yes, I know people work nationally, regionally in accountancy. Yes, I know you can have Zoom calls. Yes, I know there are online firms. But Seriously, how many of us are actually there with that? How many of us are actually achieving that? I do have a school of surfing in Cornwall as a client, even though I'm based in North Manchester, because I love going to Cornwall, and I did sign up for that surfing school, and I did spend a week with it and still got nowhere and couldn't stand up on the board, but did manage to convince them to become my accountancy client. But it's an outlier. I've got a load of oil riggers from Aberdeen, but it's an outlier. This is 25 miles of my office is 95% of my work. And you are going to have to constantly spend money reminding that 25 miles of your office who you are and what you can offer. The other thing is, it's not going to be in your comfort zone. You are selling. It is direct mail. It is direct marketing. You have to get a response from people, which means you have to be willing to say and do things to get that response. So the results I get. I typically spend £1,000 per month. That gets me around 1,500 mailers. The mailers and what I send, I will cover shortly. I typically get a 1% response rate. That's giving me 10 to 15 leads per month. If I see 10 of those leads and sign 65% of them, an average of £1,500 each, that's bringing me £9,000 to £10,000 a month of new work. That is typical. I have consistent for years, got that. Twice I have had to start from scratch. As I said at the beginning of this, once I got made redundant from a consolidator, several years later, which was killing me, I sold it out to a national firm. That sale didn't go very well. We all ended up fighting with each other. We all ended up in court, and I returned to go and had absolutely nothing. That was 12 years ago. All over again 12 years ago. Direct mail worked again for me at that stage. Now, at the scale I'm at, with a couple of £1 million fees at this point, the £9,000 to £10,000 a month doesn't really even replace what I lose on a day-to-day basis. Even if clients love you, you're going to lose 10% of them a year. They die, retire, sell up. Four of my top 20 clients are currently for sale at the minute. And yes, I'm undertaking the sale, and yes, I'll generate some very, very tasty fees for myself in doing that and help them. Obviously, you still have to be constantly hunting and searching for new work. If you're right at the beginning of a practice, £9,000 to £10,000 a month is transformational for you. You pull 120k of fees in a year, and by the following year you're pushing 220, 230, allowing for some losses in there. That is absolutely, utterly transformational. It's not just feeding the monster, it creating an income and a lifestyle for you. And this, start making that run though right from the early days, is you are going to have to invest in infrastructure before you have the ability, before you actually have the income for it. If you take this direct mail approach and be consistent and generate this type of results, the £10,000, £20,000 per month, every month, and it can be 20. I mean, from a direct mail piece, I think it was just after I celebrated this one on the 3-word check-in Simon does on a Friday, a direct mail piece that I'd sent out 12, 13 months previously. Because I did direct mail right the way through COVID, I have to say, albeit at a slightly lesser quantity, but I did do direct mail right the way through. Actually signed me up a £25,000 job that I took from a top 10 firm of accountants. You can hit some real doozies doing this along the way. But if you are doing that, if you know that at the end of the year, you're going to go from 0 to 120k, or you're going to go from 120k to 240k of fees, you're going to have to make sure you've got the infrastructure in place. Now, that's not the purpose of today. That's not the purpose of what I'm talking about in this, but know that you are going to have to invest, and know that at certain stages of a practice, if you're going to have this type of growth, you probably are going to lose money. I find the average life of direct mail piece nowadays is about 5 years. I find that some clients generally, although I say 10% of your client base a year, last year it was actually 6% for us in a firm. But client turnaround seems to be getting shorter. Simon.
Robert, yeah, I've got a couple of questions. I'm conscious we're nearly halfway as well, just for your point of reference. Paul's asked, you said you send out 15 to 20,000 pieces of mail per year. How many are you sending per lead?
Per lead? Right, okay. That's a good question. And that kind of links into having what sort of database you have. I have a database of as I say, I go out 25 miles from the area. I buy the data in. I aim for 12,000 and addresses on my mailing list. What that means is I'm hitting them twice per year on average.
Twice a year. So every 6 months, basically.
Every 6 months.
Okay. And I believe that answers your question, Andrew, where you're talking about quarterly or half yearly. It's half yearly. If you want to ask another question on top of that, Andrew, then please do. And basically the cost per piece of mail is a question from Paul. In that scenario, we're taking 1,500 mailers divided by £1,000 or £1,000 divided by, so whatever that maths is. You can do it on your calculator at home. I'm not doing it in my head
live.
That's right.
It greatly depends what you send. I'm going to give us some examples of what I send. I have altered from what I've sent at times, and it massively does depend. I did a particular mail piece during COVID where I was sending quite hefty mailers. They ended up at being about £2 a piece.
Okay. Paul's done the maths for me, so it's 66p in that scenario.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Guess at 75, so please I didn't. And then Shaz said, and I think you might be getting to this, Robert, but Shaz says, do you use a Frankie machine to send the post?
No,
okay,
I don't touch it. I outsource it all, and I'm coming to that.
Excellent. That's all the questions we've got in there at the moment, Robert. Thank you.
No problem. So, as I say, lifetime value of the client, I'm looking at on average £7,500 for £166 investment. That's what I work to. Much, much cheaper than buying fees, although I do still love buying fees because you get an instant influx of stuff and prices are falling. I think I could do probably another one for Simon on that one because I've done loads of deals. But there you go. Next, what do you actually do? I believe there's two ways of doing this, although, as I say, I have done some other pieces over the time. I think you either send a letter on letterhead in 3 paragraphs with a title and a PS and a signature. I think the letterhead needs to be in 2 color. And I think you want to include a leaflet and a keepsake. Or you send a postcard, which neatly leads me on to the best piece of direct mail you can possibly do, which is postcards. Now, this is massively time consuming if you're going to do this with postcards, not the version that I'm showing here, this particular version. This particular version I did right at the beginning. I got the idea somewhere else. I can't remember where, but I did get it somewhere else. I went to Blackpool for the day with my wife. I bought 50 Blackpool postcards. And I hand wrote the postcards to the top 50 businesses I was targeting at the time, and I stuck a stamp on them. And it said something like, "Dear Fred, I'm sitting in Blackpool worried about," and went from there. If you handwrite a postcard and stick a stamp on it from a seaside resort, I guarantee to you that postcard will get read. It will get through any gatekeepers. It will end up on an individual's desk. For that reason, the perfect direct mail usually revolves around that type of thing. The perfect direct mail would be a handwritten envelope with a stamp in the corner. I don't do that simply because it's too time consuming. I do use window envelopes. I actually outsource the whole process. I believe they will be being franked. In so doing and in so outsourcing it, it becomes a lot cheaper as well. But if you do read any of those books I put before, they will talk about the perfect one having a handwritten address. 3 paragraphs keeps it fairly snappy. The 2 things that you can guarantee are going to be read in any piece of direct mail is the title of the letter and the PS. So you almost want to be able to have a letter that you can understand by just reading the title and the PS. I think the letterhead needs to be in 2 colors on a decent quality paper. You don't want to use tissue paper for this unless that is your angle. I did a direct mail piece a couple of years ago where I actually used the old airmail letters and the old airmail paper. For those of you of a certain vintage, airmail paper was like tissue paper and had a red and blue border around it. It's quite eye-catching. You don't see it often nowadays. it becomes very, very salesy, and it depends on your personal viewpoint of sales as to whether you want to do it like that. If you want to keep it within the professional confines of accountancy, you probably want to do it on your letterhead. I once upon a time used to get at least one complaint a year from another firm of accountants to my professional regulator about my direct mail pieces. They used to get hold of them and didn't like them. I almost saw that as a badge of honor. I'm not advocating you do that. My don't really seem to care. So, but do be aware that I think it's become more accepted over the years, but certainly when I was first getting going, it wasn't. So, or as I say, postcards being the other thing. So what do you actually write in it? Everybody's favorite radio station, WII-FM, short and sharp. I quote what is believed to be the shortest story in the English language there, written by Hemingway. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. Hemingway was the master of taking English and cutting it down to its absolute bare essentials. Everyone's favorite radio station, WII-FM, is what's in it for me. You've got to be able to take what it is that you do, as I do on screen there, and turn it into a short, sharp sentence that is appealing to the reader of it. I don't do auditing, but I put auditing on there because, let's be honest, it's probably the most boring thing accountants do. We do auditing is not of any appeal to anybody. We do auditing, this will help you, is the start of forming a decent sentence. We do auditing, this will help you review the financial systems that your business uses to find what works and what doesn't, is getting closer and closer. But you can see how I've distilled that down from we do auditing to review your financial systems and learn how to make more money. So if you write on a direct mail piece as a title of a letter, review your financial systems and learn how to make more money, you're going to get a lot more attention than we do auditing. Simple process, write what it is you do, write this will help you because, put in the last bit, cross out the first bit, tidy up. You want to end up with for sale, baby shoes, never worn. That's what you're trying to get to in a piece of direct mail. That's what copywriting books will certainly help you with. The perfect test of it, I think, is to try and get into 100 words. You want your letter to actually have no more than 100 words. That is a standard letter that I would send. It's also the same wording that I use on my website for accounts, independent examinations, and management accounting, I think it is. Having accurate, timely information will help you manage your stock, what people owe you, what you owe people, and your cash flow. At the end of the year, we'll ensure that your final accounts are prepared in accordance with all accounting standards, and we'll then check that you're claiming everything you are entitled to claim. Whether you are a sole trader, partnership, or limited company, let us prepare your bookkeeping accounts, or that will relieve you of what can be a very stressful and time-consuming process. And we promise that our accountants offer friendly service delivered in plain English. That is 100 words exactly. Whatever it is that you're writing about, that is the aim on a direct mail piece, no more than 100 words. If you can, 60 words, even better still, very hard. Even though I've been doing this for years, even I struggle to get it down to 60 words. 100 I can do. That probably took me the best part of a day to get to. So again, you've got to invest your own time, effort, and energy into this. It's not going to be automatic. If you are in doubt, hire a copywriter. I have a brilliant one who I'm perfectly happy to share with people. She's freelance. She lives and works in Ireland. I will happily make the introductions to her. I'm not precious on that. I haven't put it on the list of things because it is an individual, so I don't want to be just sharing her email address with everybody. But I'm sure if you went back to Simon or Mark and said you were interested in working with a copywriter,
we can organise that.
Yeah, happily. The last letter we sent. Now I know that's going to be tiny on the screen. I put just the words on the next screen, but it's just to give you an idea. That's my letterhead. That's how it looks. Are you missing a tax trick? The first 25 people to book get a copy of our new book, 101 Tax Saving Tips for Directors, which sells on Amazon for $29.99. You almost know what that letter says without reading the middle bit. That's how it looks. It's as simple as. Onto it. The next one is, here's another sample of what we sent. I've just cut it into the middle bit. Dear John, the truth is numbers and tax can be a right head peck if you run your own business. But whatever you need from your books, from just enough to make the taxman happy through 12 things your accounts tell you, all the way to 7 special tax strategies that make business owners rich, our small team of local people speak plainly in words that make sense. And yes, we're absolutely bang up to date with ideas to save tax or save money, and we're always on your side, as our many Google reviews testify. For a chat that costs nothing about getting more from your business, call Andy Barker on 01706 860 255, or go to Andy's diary. Andy's my business partner, who I mentioned earlier. We look forward to hearing from you today. Best regards, James Green. P.S. The first 100 people to speak with Andy and say whatever the hell that says in Latin get either a 25 balloting voucher from Motor Valet, who's a client of ours. We partnered up with them and bought a load on bulk cheap, or a copy of our Secrets to Grow Your Business Fast Starting Today, a best-selling Amazon book worth £30. Nothing surprising there, nothing revolutionary, just saying what it is. Appeal very much to a local business. You're not writing for accountants, you're writing for others. With it, what we also put in is a leaflet. That is the leaflet that we currently use. The design of that leaflet has changed 20 times over the 20 years. No, it's probably not 20 years, that actually. It's probably changed 5 or 6 times over the 20 years. The actual wording has never changed once. I'm still using the same wording 20 years later. And the clients that are quoted down at the bottom, John retired probably 10 years ago. But once the wording is not particularly clever or special, you will have comparable already. It will exist for you. It splits into our guarantees to you. Does your accountant have a front page that ties into our website design? Back page with our content. This is a trifold, by the way. It's very much what you put on a website. But again, this is salesmanship in writing to it. The pen that we send, that's it. It's just a picture of a pen. They are cheap as chips. I think they work out about 3p each. We buy them from a company called Boston Promotional. There's a link at the end, and Mark and Simon will put that round. But there's a million places to buy pens and stuff cheap on it. The reason you want something like this is they hold on to it. Even if they get the letter, hate the trifold, put those straight in the bin, they'll keep the pen. One of the best giveaways we've ever done in a direct mail piece is ice scrapers, literally ice scrapers for cars. It's a lot more expensive to send. It's a lot more expensive to actually produce. They cost about £1 each, which means your actual direct mail piece is going to probably be close to £3 by the time you're done, but they have 100% retention. And they are still talked about around the Rochdale area. Everywhere we go, people talk about our ice scrapers. We give them away now as opposed to put them in direct mail pieces. The pens are the ones that we do. There's a nurse, and on several occasions at the hospital she works at, she has actually been handed a Carter Collins and Meyer pen by one of her colleagues. It hasn't come from her in the first place. They have received them elsewhere. She never lets on that she's linked to Carter Collins and Meyer, and she always finds it amusing when she does get hold of them. It's amazing how these things circulate. Pens are probably in one of the best giveaways you can have, simply because they are retained, even in this day of electronic everything. Here's an example of 2 postcards. This was aimed at pubs. We did a practice acquisition and started a campaign at going after the licensed trade with absolutely impeccable timing. February 2020, we bought a practice that did nothing but pubs. Granted, it was £25,000 worth of pubs, but still nothing but pubs. Yes, that was a complete disaster. However, the pub business, despite all the closing down of them, despite all the things that have happened over the years, is a great business to get into for accountants. There's lots that you can do for them. We send these out on bulk. I actually get these done internally, I have to say. With these, what we do is we have 3 AAT trainees. They each have to handwrite from a list and stick a stamp in the corner and send them out. So we're sending 60 of these a day, 4 days a week. Not doing this one particularly at the moment, but it does work. Again, if you look at the wording, almost the same sort of stuff as was in the letter. Our team are all Rochdale locals who understand the challenges facing pubs and restaurants coming out of the chaos of 2020 and the lockdown. Our advisors help countless venues, just like yours, get their personal and business finances sorted, saving money, boosting profits, and future-proofing. Check out our Google reviews. You're sure to spot someone you already know. Call me today on for a free chat about getting more from your pub or restaurant. Best regards, Andy Barker. Handwritten stamp, you've got a good chance of getting through. And write the message on the left-hand side as well, but that does take vast amounts of time. Here's another one, general business owners, the last letters we sent. Again, basically the same sort of wording, same sort of thing, trying to get attention, trying to get it read. The aim is to get read. The aim is to get a response. You are not going to sign a client directly from one of these. Truthfully, if you actually send something like this and they ring up immediately going, please take my money, you probably don't want them. They're probably a pitter, but it's to start a conversation and a relationship. Who to target, whatever you are interested in.
Robert, just before you move on to this next bit, there's a question that Ashley's just posted, and I had one as well. So the basic mailer, the one that goes most often, is it's a letter. So a one-page letter. A trifold leaflet.
And a pen.
And a pen. So that's the basic package that goes.
That's the basic package.
Thank you. That's great. I will respond. I know what the answer. So you carry on, and I'll sort Ashley. Okay.
Fine. Who to target is whoever you are interested in, whatever you are interested in. If you have a particular interest in a topic, a sector, a subject, go for it. We did a significant mail piece to solicitors' practices within 150 miles of our office when the CGT rules changed and you had to do what was then the 30-day return. I can tell you we generated nearly £100,000 of work out of that campaign. We've developed new relationships with solicitors. We do get sent some other members of the community on this. I've managed to keep pushing the fees up in that work because I started probably a bit low, but it's you could target pubs, restaurants, sectors of businesses, geographic areas. If you love dealing with sports clubs, charities, anything and everything. My principle is geographic. My principle is 25 miles of the office. That is the bulk of everything. That said, the first practice I created that I sold to the National specialized in dentistry. That wasn't intentional. It just happened. I just ended up with it. But once it became clear that that's the route I was going, I was targeting them nationwide. I went to the British Dental Association. I bought their mailing lists and I wrote to them. It is no more complicated than that. Now, where you get your mailing lists from, there are a million providers of them. I'm going to give you the person that I use in a moment. They may be good, they may not be. I've used them for years. They work fine for me, but there's plenty of other places you could go as well. I am not connected to any of the people we talk about here. I'm not promoting anything that I'm talking of here. I've posted on the Facebook forum a few times about direct mail, and Simon very kindly asked me to come and talk to everybody today. So there's nothing in it for me on this. I'm not trying to sell anything, so please do feel free to use whoever you want to use. Where to go? As I mentioned, DMA is the Direct Marketing Association or whatever. They have a slightly different version of that they call themselves now, but that's well worth going to. Stamp, I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never used it, but they get lots and lots of good write-ups for direct mail. It's talked about often in direct mail circumstances. It's an add-on to your own individual computer, and you can publish directly to them from. So you can write a Word document. You have an Excel spreadsheet of prospects. You write a Word document for your letter. Instead of printing to your local printer, you print to them. They become like a print driver that you have. It sends straight to them. They print it for you and send it out. I use one-to-one direct mail. They are a Manchester-based company. The MD is called Linda Cook. I have dealt with her for 20 years, although have never once met her. I've got a few people like that I've now dealt with for 20 years, but never actually met them in person. I don't think I've even ever actually spoken to her on the telephone. I think it's always been emails, maybe in the early days. I'm not sure if emails were quite as common then. One-to-one direct mail also supply data. 1,000 names and addresses is typically going to cost a couple of £100. I think 12,000 names and addresses is something that's probably you're approaching £700-800 to buy that. I buy it once and then filter it every year. So I go back to, you spend your £700-800 once on your 12,000 names and addresses. I go back to one-to-one direct every year, say, please clean my database. You probably find 1,000 of those drop out, and I purchase a new 1,000 of them for a couple £100 and add them back onto the list. What I do is literally email. So I can change the campaign at will. They print it monthly. I have a big supply of the trifolds pens done. I use Boston Promotional Gifts for the pens. They're at the bottom. Again, no, I'm not selling it. It's just people I use. I'll have 50,000 pens done. I'll have 50,000 leaflets done. I'll have them delivered straight to Linda at one-to-one. She stores them for me. I'll write a letter on letterhead. Our letterhead is just a template within Word. I will email that to Linda at the beginning of each month, and I will say, please use this until I tell you otherwise. We tend to change it about every 6 months. We tend to tweak it so that the people on the list are getting a slightly different message every time that they come through. If we're doing a specific campaign like solicitors, or we're going after startups or something, we tend to tweak it again in those circumstances. But I don't get involved. I used to. Once upon a time, I bought my own mailing machine. I once went out, spent 10,000. I used to have this thing in the corner chugging out the post for me. I found it was actually cheaper and easier to outsource it. Not only does it involve none of my time, but these guys get significant discounts on mail costs. If you do it yourself, if you run it through a franking machine, you're going to have to pay full price for it, even with a franking machine. If you go through these guys, first class mail is significantly cheaper. Second, I actually send all mailing pieces out second class. I don't see why they need to be first. If you read some of the books, there's arguments that say you should send it first. I just send it in white envelopes, a white window envelope on second class mail through those. Again, if you read the books and perfect direct mail, there's lots of talk that you should use colored envelopes and handwrite it, stick stamps on it. It does improve your open rate. It does improve things, but to make this as simple for me as I can, because of the scale I'm doing it, that's how I choose to do it nowadays. That is actually everything. That is all. I will stop the screen share, and Simon, if you want to come back on.
Yeah, I've got just a question from Jenny to start with. If anybody else has got any other questions that they would like to ask Rob, if you could pop those in the Q&A box now, I will gladly ask them for you. Jenny's asked, is there any difference in outcome between targeting newly incorporated companies or established businesses? No. We always say go to do newcos, and there is a great place. Recently formed.co.uk is probably the best place to from for newcos. There's a variety of sellers for it, but recently formed sell it the cheapest, the data. We actually send them a birthday card. We actually bulk buy birthday cards, and the receptionist handwrites them. Within 25 miles of my office, we get between 60 and 100 newcos a week being formed. The list comes through. Liz, my receptionist, knows most of the addresses of the other accountants in the area. We'll immediately remove the addresses of the other accountants, which probably leaves 20 to 30, and we'll send them a birthday card and a voucher for a 1-hour free meeting with us. The response rate is no better or worse. Okay, thank you. And then Mendy's just asked in the chat box, how do you find the addresses to target? You buy the data in. That's what I was saying. You buy it in from, there's loads. You go onto Google and type direct mail lists. There's a million places to get it from. Selector base is probably the biggest. I buy mine from one-to-one direct mail. Thank you. And then Martin's asked, we want to target restaurants in the Manchester area. Would you say those custom postcards are the best strategy for this? And if so, how do we acquire those custom postcards that you use? The postcards I had designed by the designer that I use for most of the things. So anything, we have a graphic designer that I originally found through People Per Hour. They were pretty good, and we just now deal with them direct. I think the postcard cost about 50 quid to have laid out. We then printed it using solopress.co.uk. The more you do, the cheaper it becomes.
and you buy the mailing list in. Again, I bought it from one-to-one direct mail.
Thank you. Have you sent any free gifts other than a pen and an ice scraper?
Yes, probably everything over the years. The most significant one of all was not to get customers. The most significant one was actually to get staff. My now tax partner, once head of tax and previous sole practitioner who'd also once worked for me, she'd been at a national, she came to work for me, she left and set up on her own and then merged back in with me, which is great. Actually came from a direct mail piece. So 2006, this is the original firm. I wanted to hire a decent tax person, somebody of, lots of experience and knowledge and all the rest of it. So I went along to the agency and they went, yeah, no problem. It's going to cost you about £20,000 for us to headhunt this person that you're looking for. And me being half Jewish went, no, I'm not paying that. So I went to COT and asked them, would they sell me their list? They said, no, but we will post out for you. So I had done a small box, bigger than the Matchbox, but probably about yay big, with a cake in it. And I had the box branded up as the then name of the then firm, which I'm not allowed to use because I sold it to a national firm. And on the cake, I had it iced as, have your cake and eat it, name of firm. Telephone 0161850, whatever it was at the time. I had COT sent, I targeted that within 50 miles of my office. COT sent that to about 200 people, I seem to remember. I think each mail piece ended up costing me about 15 quid. And I got inundated with applications, saw 10 of them, took one of them on, and she to this day is still brilliant.
Hey.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've got how many of the cakes did you eat? That's what it's doing. There definitely have to be somebody else that's doing them.
Quality control. Yeah.
Do you know how many times you have to mail one person before they respond?
No, because it can vary. The statistics in the advertising and marketing industry is 7 contacts before they actually sign up to you. I don't track it in that way. It can be very weird with direct mail. You can get people that respond immediately. One of the weirdest I ever sent was middle of last year. I've managed to hold on to every telephone number I've ever had for the offices, despite it being a couple of different firms. The middle of last year, we actually got a telephone call from somebody who, when I went and saw them, because I actually went and did it, produced a letter under the name of Robert Newman and Co., which was how I first started trading in 2000. And they produced this letter that was from the Marketing Correspondence Cookbook that they'd actually kept for 20 years. And they actually said, I knew that one day I'd need another accountant, so I held on to it.
So the longest is 20 years.
20 years,
basically.
Yeah.
Excellent. Adam's asked, how large should your mailing list be and what content works best? Well, you talked about the content. Am I right in saying, Robert, that the only reason why you do 1,000 to 2,000 a month is because you know that generates £7,500 to £10,000 a month?
Yep.
So if you wanted to do 20,000, you would just double the investment, basically.
Absolutely. That's all it boils down to. It's how much can you realistically follow up and sign up and deal with. There was a stage in the first firm when I was first getting going on this. I was spending more like £5,000 a month to start off with, because I had nothing else to do. My job was just sign up clients. We didn't have any actual work. I didn't even have any staff. I did hit a point in 2002 where I didn't actually have a client list and didn't actually know what I was doing at all. And I had the most horrendous tax season you could ever have, because I literally didn't know what tax returns I needed to do. But it all depends on who you're trying to target and how often you're trying to hit them. My theory is you hit them twice a year. You could go more than that. You could go for 3-4 times a year. I wouldn't do more than 3 or 4 times a year on direct mail. I think you're starting to just get spammy at that point. I think once is not enough. 2 to 4 is sort of the sweet spot to it. What can you put up with? Too few, you won't generate anything. 1,000 is at the bottom end of it. 500 is probably your minimum to actually see results. You start sending 10 or 20 letters a month, you're not going to You're not going to see it.
You're a long time before you get to
Yeah.
1% of 20 if you
Exactly.
if you're multiplying it up. Thank you. Ian's asked, do you follow up with them in any other way? So do you
Not
telephone
currently,
calls?
no.
No.
We used to put cold callers on it. I used to have some ladies that work from home and used to cold call them. Cold calling effectiveness has fallen through the floor in the last few years, and I don't bother anymore. If you do follow it up, in the days of the cold call, we used to get 3%, but don't do that anymore.
So the cold call in the old days, when you used to do it, the cold call would lift the response rate from 1% to 3%.
Correct.
So it could triple it, but
Yes.
we don't. That died off, basically, is what you're saying. So
Yeah.
we don't know what that would be these days. Mendy's asked, do you keep sending the same letters to the same addresses over and over, or do you send different content to the same addresses every single month?
Every 6 months we tweak the letter. So it's the same letter for 6 months. So I hit all 12,000 people, and then I'll start round again on them. And there's only so much you can actually say with "Hello, would you like an accountant?" There is so much you can actually put to it, but it will be slightly tweaked. The offer will be slightly changed. The headline will be slightly different.
Excellent, thank you. I'm just flicking down the questions that we got. Response rate, which we've talked about. What advice would you give to somebody that was looking to start to do this?
Ready, fire, aim.
So get on with it. Get on with
it. Just get on with it. Just do it. Don't think about it too much. Just start.
Thank you. We've got 3 minutes left. So if you've got any other questions, if you pop them in the Q&A box. I've got one from Paul. Would it be better to send to a smaller list and send them one a month, or for 4 months, and then move on to the next group? So I'll convert that into my language, Robert. Is there a reason why you send one mailer every 6 months? And do you think that's better than sending a different mailer to the same person every month? Does that make sense?
It does. If you send the same mail, if you send a different mailer to the same person for every month, you're just going to irritate them and annoy them. What you're trying to do is to get to somebody when there is a reason to look at their accounting relationship. So if you're doing it more than, as I say, you could hit them 3 times a year, you could hit them 4 times a year. But if you start doing it more than that, nothing has changed in that shorter period of time. There's no reason for them to react in such a short space of time. There may well be. You may just happen to, they've just had that argument with their accountant when they open that mail, but the chances are it's not. Whereas if you go twice a year, there's a lot more reason.
Yeah, so you need to be top of mind, basically.
Yes.
When they have the problem and they need somebody, and it's at that point when they think, "Oh, who was that bloke that sent me the letter? Oh, I don't know. I'll find it." And by the time they've sorted out finding it, the 6 months has gone by, or the 3 months, or whatever it is, and then bang, and away you go. Thank you, Paul. From the point of view of that, Paul. So Paul's asked about once a quarter, then, rather than. It's a testing it job, basically. The beauty of direct mail is that you can, as much as you can on the internet, as you know how many, as long as you only use the call to action specific to that piece of mail, you know what your response rate is, so you can measure your investment. And
the other tip for that is to actually, James Green is put on every piece of direct mail that we send out. James Green is actually not a real person, so that if James Green is ever asked for, you know it's from a direct mail.
Excellent. So, hello, can I speak to James Green? No, James Green's unavailable. Rob's available. And away. Excellent. I like that idea. Thank you. Shazzy's asked, what's your view on sending emails over an alternative, or as an alternative to post?
Totally different. It's completely and utterly different.
Yeah. Okay. And I am conscious of the time now, so I've got 4 questions. Do you sort your list in any particular order, i.e. year-end date or anything like that? No. Would this work for finding freelance FD work as well?
Don't see why not, to be honest.
To have a go.
The message you're delivering. I don't see why it wouldn't.
The letter would obviously be different, but the process would all be the same. Martin, would you keep sending the same keepsake to the same person when you repeat?
Yes.
So do you keep sending the pens? Yeah. Keep sending the pens. And then the last one before we wrap up, Luke's asked, do you filter out targets using other accounting firms as the registered office? Which I think you...
On the startups we do, because it's easy to pull. If you're buying the right data, they actually don't include registered office. They actually send it direct to the trading address. And if you're buying data from a decent data provider, there might be one or two that slip through. As I say, I think that's why in the old days I used to get the odd complaint from other accountants because the direct mail piece would land. But the decent mail list providers will have already sorted that for you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Rob. And thank you to everybody that's asked a question. Paul, what we'll do is we'll make sure that all of the links that Rob has shared within the presentation today go out on the email. So when we send the recording out, you'll get the email with all the different links. Mark's just popped that in the box as well. That's brilliant, Rob. Absolutely fascinating for me. I know personally I have this big desire to go rush out and start doing mailing lists and writing letters and all the rest of it. And I have to sort of bring myself back and go back to your first piece of advice at the start, which is make sure that you read the books, and write the letter before you go out and do the shiny objects. I think it's a fascinating subject and has certainly provoked me, and I know when we put it in the community to start with, provoked the community. We're getting lots of thank yous and well done, congratulations, fantastic content in the chat box as well, Rob. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much to everybody that came along to listen to Rob, and most importantly to say thank you, Rob, for sharing that content. And if I'd have shut up 5 minutes ago, finishing on time as well. So it's so brilliant, Rob, and thank you very much, Simon. And we'll see you again soon. Brilliant. Thank you. Bye-bye. What a fascinating session that was with Rob Newman, sharing how he generates leads for his accountancy practice by direct mail. As always, if you have any comments or questions or ideas that you would like to talk to us about, please post them in the comments below and we will gladly answer them. Please hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel so you get notified the next time we upload a video. In the meantime, on the screen now should be our next suggestions for you to watch in order to inspire, challenge and support you and your team to run a better accountancy practice.